where mental health meets real life. I'm your host, Samantha Ariza, a licensed therapist, former educator, and a semi-normal human being, but really your go-to person for relatable conversations about healing, growth, and overall emotional wellness. Around here, we believe that mental health doesn't have to be stiff or scary. We keep it human, practical, and hey, let's have a little bit fun while we're at it, right? Because life is messy and we're all just trying to figure it out. Each week, you'll get honest insights, science-backed tools, and stories that remind you you're not alone in this. Whether you're on your own healing journey, supporting someone else, there's something here for you. So take a breath, grab a cup of coffee, just get a little comfy, and let's dive in. So today, in this episode, we're taking on another hot take, and this is spicy and probably a little controversial because it's something that's probably popped up in your algorithm. The whole idea of self-diagnosis on TikTok is out of control. So let's talk about it. The good, the bad, the harmful, and the misunderstood. We're in an interesting cultural moment if you think about it. You can scroll through your For You page and in 30 seconds be told you have ADHD because you interrupt people, BPD because your breakup wrecked you, autism because you hate that eye contact, and depression because you like dark music and stay in bed for way too long. Which is a lot if you think about it. No other time in history have we had this access to information, or even have it blasted in our faces against our will. On one hand, this explosion of relatable content has opened the door for people who never saw their struggles reflected before. But on the other hand, this brings up the concern about over-identifying, misdiagnosing, and turning mental health into a vibe rather than valid processing or healing. So as usual, let's ground this in evidence. First, we'll talk about the positive side because there is one. The first positive impact that we see is awareness, connection, and reduced stigma. Naslund in 2020 conducted a comprehensive review of 43 studies involving young people. They found that social media platforms provided vital spaces for self-disclosure, peer support, and it helped boost self-esteem, which ultimately reduces the stigma around mental health issues because stigma is still a huge factor. We see that it shows public health promotion via TikTok. A 2020 systematic review by McCashin, published in PubMed Central, identified multiple studies exploring TikTok's role in mental and public health education. It highlighted how short, engaging videos can spread accurate information and raise symptom awareness to a broader audience. Again, emphasis on accurate information. Then we see what we know as the Papageno effect. The Papageno effect focuses on the protective benefits of positive storytelling. This was named after a character in Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute. The character in the opera chooses life over death after being reminded of alternative solutions for coping with his misery. And due to this story and this character, this has become a well-known effect which underscores the importance of sharing stories in hope and recovery. So in 2023, Yon researched and examined how exposure to coping stories, like personal journey videos, led to decreased stress and depression in users, while also promoting diverse expressive writing and interactive engagement on Twitter. This reflects how positive, real-world storytelling on social media platforms can have measurable mental health benefits. In summary, these studies reinforce that when used thoughtfully, social media, even TikTok, can support mental health literacy, reduce stigma, and provide community-centered emotional relief. So yes, social media can be a gateway to understanding and healing. But there's a catch. A 2022 peer-reviewed study by Sung et al. In Canadian Journal of Psychiatry examined mental health content on TikTok and found that over 50% of videos about mental health contained misleading or inaccurate information. Many creators lacked credentials and some promoted harmful myths or exaggerated symptoms, which I think is one of the biggest issues with social media. Everyone is allowed an opinion, and I'm not saying that. The problem is when the opinion is presented as authority. And what I mean by authority is that you have the knowledge, experience, and even credentials to back up what you're saying. People on social media or in the media in general sometimes parade themselves as an authority on the subject when they're just well-known people with an opinion, which can lead to negative impacts. These are some of the hidden costs of social media and mental health. We see misleading content and self-diagnosis distress. Again, a 2022 study in the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry analyzed TikTok videos about ADHD and found that over 50% were misleading and only 21% were considered useful. Misleading videos were often associated with greater symptom distress and the lower likelihood of seeking professional help, which is crucial because we need everybody getting the help they need. We don't need any more barriers to people getting the help that they need. We also see self-diagnosis confusion and misinformation. Media commentary summarizing the Indiana University research in 2023 showed that college students self-diagnosing via the internet, we're talking about conditions like depression, panic disorder, and even social anxiety, were 5 to 11 times more likely to be wrong than right. This stresses how inaccurately self-labeling is too common. And again, this is potentially harmful. Which leads us to the other thing, which we all do, which is doom scrolling. A 2024 study surveyed 800 students, and it revealed that doom scrolling was linked to existential anxiety, suspicion, distrust, and ultimately despair, which was mirroring secondary trauma and feeling of hopelessness. Adding to that, Harvard experts warn about the psychological toll of doom scrolling, labeled insidious. Sounds scary, right? And connects to overstimulation, insomnia, and heightened stress responses. Social media's highlight reel feature fuels social comparison, which has been tied to increased depression, particularly when users compare themselves to idealized standards, which is all we see on social media, especially when it comes to Facetune and Photoshopping. All we see is like the perfected version of someone's life and even body. Broader reviews and meta-analysis confirm that while social media increases connection and belonging, it can also trigger self-esteem dips, body image issues, anxiety, as well as depression. In summary, these studies illustrate how unchecked mental health content can propagate misinformation. It will worsen self-perception and keep and perpetuate those anxieties, especially through self-diagnosis and negative scrolling behaviors. We see self-diagnosis based on social media content was associated with greater symptoms of distress, higher anxiety, and less likelihood of seeking professional treatment. So what starts out as validation can quickly spiral into identity confusion, symptom inflation, and false labels. But let's take a break for a second, because hearing all of this can be super overwhelming. And when you are feeling overwhelmed, worn out, or just not like yourself, I'm here to remind you that you're not broken, but you just might need some more resilience. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about staying grounded in hard moments, learning how to recover without shutting down, and building tools that can actually work in real life. And that's exactly what I teach inside my resilience workshop. It's a guided, practical program that walks you step by step through nervous system regulation, emotional awareness, and boundaries to protect that oh so precious energy. Without fluff, without toxic positivity. If you've ever said, I just need to get it together, this is your next step. Give me 6 weeks and we can work on strengthening your resilience. All you have to do is head to arizainspire.com resilience workshop or click the link in the show notes to learn more and join the workshop today. We're going to be starting one up in January, so there's so much time left to join. Because resilience isn't something you're born with, it's something you can build. But let's get back to the episode. Because there is a major reason why we gravitate towards these labels, why we want to know what's going on. And here's some psychological insight. When we're struggling, labels can feel like a lifeboat. It gives us something to grab onto. It offers relief because, that explains why I feel that way. It offers belonging because, hey, other people feel the same way too. And it also offers direction. Now I know what to Google or ask my therapist or talk to my doctor about. Because here's the thing. Labels without context or clarity can trap us. They can become self-fulfilling. They can block us from seeing growth. They can also lead to over-medicalizing things where every part of our personality starts to feel like a symptom. And that's the thing. When everything starts feeling like a symptom, we kind of start romanticizing because that's another layer to these labels that people sometimes romanticize mental illness online. And unfortunately, as much as I would hate to say it, it's kind of true. We see in a 2021 study published in Cyber Behavior and Social Networking by McLeod, he found that depression and anxiety-related hashtags on TikTok often include aestheticized, soft-filtered content. We had the sad music, we had the dim lighting, we had the tears. And here's the problem. It can be emotionally explosive and hit us in the feels, but it can also blur the line between expression and glorification. Because let's talk about sad fishing and buzzword overload. We see that some users exaggerate their emotional distress or deploy trending therapy terms to gain attention or sympathy. Again, known as something called sad fishing. And it matters because this behavior can minimize real suffering and contribute to an environment when authentic pain is dismissed or even treated as performative. It can also feed into this feedback loop of emotional manipulation. Because repeated exposure to aestheticized portrayals of mental illness was associated with increased emotional identification and decreased motivation for help seeking. This doesn't mean that people are faking it, don't get me wrong. It means that sometimes online presentation and how we present ourselves online competes with real life treatment. And when you're seeking that kind of external validation, and getting kind of those dopamine hits and there's different hits from social media, it gives us kind of a lag in feeling like we need to get that help, which is not super helpful. Which leads us to this other hot take that you've probably heard, which has some truth to it. Is social media making us all mentally ill? Research from the Royal Society for Public Health in the UK in 2017 showed that platforms like Instagram and TikTok are linked to increased rates of anxiety, depression, sleep issues, and body dissatisfaction. Doom scrolling, comparison culture, and all that algorithmic reinforcement all contribute to psychological stress, especially for those youngins. So what's happening? The term brain rot, which has become Oxford's Word of the Year in 2024, go figure, highlights that cultural awareness of digital overconsumption really dulling our minds, which is fine sometimes. The whole idea of having that brain mental rest is a good thing. But in that same sense, when we overindulge in a good thing, it can be a bad thing. Why does this matter? Because studies show that endless scrolling, especially of low value content, leads to emotional desensitization, cognitive overload, poorer memory, and negative self concept. It's more than a nuisance, it's impacting our executive functioning, which is funny because a lot of times we hear about that whole dopamine hit and like that quick feel good motions that we get from doom scrolling and scrolling on the internet, which just messes up our system even more. So, as much as we complain about it, we just keep contributing to that problem. We see people report increased anxiety, sadness, insomnia, and impaired focus when endlessly consuming distressing content. And a study found that doom scrolling triggers existential anxiety, despair, and emotional burnout, especially among those who are constantly exposed to negative media. And let's be real, there's so much negative media around. There's so much craziness going on in the world, and we're just getting fed it even more when we doom scroll. Some users dreadfully admit that they'd rather doom scroll than even have sex or have a relationship. One UK study revealed that 10% admitted, I'd rather doom scroll than have sex, with daily doomscape adding up to 67 million hours nationally per day. A 2023 review in the Nature Mental Health confirmed that heavy social media use is associated with poor emotional regulation, loneliness, and decreased self-esteem, especially when time spent online replaces that in-person connection or even rest. So what's the balance? What do we do? What do we need? And what don't we need? Here's what we don't need. We don't need shame for relating to content online. We don't need to police people's pain. We don't need to tell folks that they're faking or attention seeking. But here's what we do need. We need media literacy. We need to learn to ask who's posting this. Is it educational? Is it experiential? Is it just for the aesthetic and the vibe? We need that nuance because you can relate to a symptom without claiming that diagnosis. And of course, we need professional support, especially when symptoms interfere with our daily life. So, is self-diagnosis on TikTok out of control? Maybe. Probably. But it's also a symptom of something deeper. It's a culture starving for self-understanding. It's a healthcare system that's inaccessible or even dismissive. It's a generation trying to heal, even if it's imperfect. If you ever seen a TikTok that made you think, wow, that's me, you're not wrong for feeling seen. Just remember, feeling seen is not the same as being supported. Relating to a post is not the same as a full clinical picture. And healing, it's more than a diagnosis. It's a journey. So if this episode made you think, feel, or want to scroll a little more mindfully, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, close the app, take a breath. You're more than an algorithm. Can't wait for next week? Here's a sneak peek of the next episode on the Ariza Inspire Podcast. I see this take thrown around all the time. Burnout isn't real. It's just laziness. Or its cousin, mental health days are just an excuse to slack off. And I want us to dig in, not for the sake of winning an argument, but to understand why that kind of talk is harmful and what the evidence actually tells us.